Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the keynote address this evening by Jaron Lanier for the topic of the Network City as part of the Festival of Ideas for the New City. Jaron Lanier could well be the patron saint of multitasking. He is a computer scientist, programmer, composer, musician, visual artist, and author. His most recent book, You Are Not a Gadget, begins with the bluntly dire forecast. It's early in the 21st century, and that means that these words will mostly be read by non-persons. And it continues to note that the words will be copied millions of times by some algorithm somewhere designed to send an advertisement. And to conclude the thought, the words will be scanned, rehashed, and misrepresented by crowds of quick and sloppy readers. Jaron has been associated with the phrase virtual reality since its inception. He's done pioneering work in biometric information, architecture, user interfaces, heterogeneous scientific simulations, advanced information systems for medicine, and computational approaches to the fundamentals of physics. In 2010, Time magazine counted him as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, and that same year, Michiko Kukutani named You Are Not a Gadget as one of the 10 best books of the year. After serving as Microsoft's Scholar at Large, Jaron is currently their partner architect. Please join me in welcoming Jaron Lanier.
So I have this instrument I've been starting my talks with lately because I can sort of sneak it onto carry-on, and it's really cool. And there's a good story behind it, which I'm going to tell you after I play. This thing anyway. This is called a can. It's from Laos in Southeast Asia, little country close to Thailand. I like to play this one first of all, just because it's kick-ass, and also because it's one of the candidates for the first example of digital information in the history of the human species. We don't know exactly how old this design is. It's kind of a perishable thing. It's not like it's made of stone or anything. But it's probably older than the abacus. And it consists of a sequence of similar objects that are either on or off. So these are the first bits, right here. Now, these were traded across, I'm going to keep on sort of scanning here because you're so wide angle. This reminds me sort of designing head-mount displays and trying to get the peripheral vision, you know, which you can never do. So these were traded across the Silk Route in ancient times. The Greeks knew about them. The Romans knew about them. The Romans, well, they were Romans, and so they made a giant, giant version that was powered by steam. And it was called the hydraulis, and it was used to provide delicate musical shadings to the gore in the Colosseum. And it was so big that the slave boys they had operating it couldn't quite do it, so they created the system with planks that could be used as levers, and that was the origin of the keyboard. And then even that got a bit iffy, so there was some sort of a means that we don't know much about by which they could automate the control of the planks, move a bunch of them at once and so forth. And that became the first semi-automatic instrument we know about. The hydraulis evolved in the Middle Ages into the pipe organ. The pipe organ, from the start, retained a little bit of this heritage that, hey, maybe this mechanism could be automated once in a while. And indeed, when it turned into the piano, there were player pianos very, very early on. In fact, there was an extraordinary one that was an improvising player piano that helped inspire a guy named Jacquard, who made a programmable loom. That's going to come up again. The programmable loom, as you probably know, in turn inspired a guy named Charles Babbage, who made a programmable calculating engine, a wonderful, crazy brass thing. And, well, from there comes the computer. So this is a direct ancestor. Now, this is a bit of a, I'm telling you a slightly tall tale in that there's never just one direct ancestor. But every story about ancestors is a tall tale for precisely the same reason that this one is. So it's, you know, there's nothing special about the degree of deceit I'm sharing with you at the moment. It's highly traditional. So just believe it. This is it. This is the start of computers. Now, an interesting question to ask is, have computers gotten better or worse since this thing? Okay, and in some ways, they've unquestionably gotten better. For instance, the number of bits. I mean, obviously, many more bits, even, you know, extraordinarily more bits in your phone now than in this. Well, it depends on what you think a bit is, though. Because the interesting thing about acoustic instruments is that we operate them at the very edge of the possible in terms of physics. If you look at the evolution of the human body, at our sensory motor capabilities, there's some special instances in which our acuities are right down to the quantum level. In some circumstances, our retinas can respond to a single photon. The degree of acuity between your fingers, if you touch them together, is just extraordinary. And with good musical instruments, we're manipulating reality. We're in touch with reality at such a degree that I believe, well, I know, it's beyond the threshold that we can measure in isolation.